Dipti is here with the press review. She's going to take us through what the media is saying the day after Donald Trump's resounding victory in the US elections. The press have, not surprisingly, a lot to say, don't they, Dipti?
Yeah, that's right. A lot to say. A stunning victory. That's how National Review, this is a conservative US magazine, describes it on the front of their website. The paper calls it, the magazine calls it a personal and political vindication for Donald Trump. He overcame a 2020 election loss, his disgraceful conduct in the aftermath, prosecution and hostile press coverage to take the White House in those presidential elections. Now, for this writer from Fox News, Trump's victory slams Democrats' woke world view. And the writer says the Democrats will really have to reassess everything now, who they are, what they stand for, why they exist as a party. So a lot of soul searching for well, according to Fox News, for the Democrats. Now, the Wall Street Journal in its editorial today says Donald Trump wins the election and a second chance, calling it a remarkable comeback that was thanks in part to his own personal resilience, but also to Joe Biden's failures as a president, who failed to deliver the unity and prosperity that he had promised back in 2020. And for USA Today, it's even more than that. Democrats can blame Joe Biden's ego. He should have stepped down well before he did, and left a better chance for a candidate in the Democratic Party to actually have more time to stand against Donald Trump. For foreign policy, there's a lot of focus on why Kamala Harris lost. It was a failure to court the working class voters that really spelt the end for the Democrats. It was also Harris's strategy. So she spent too much time attacking Donald Trump and not enough time actually telling us what she was planning to do as president. She also didn't really explain her flip-flopping on key issues like fracking. Ultimately, as the New York Times says in this article here, Donald Trump managed to connect with so many Americans in a way that Kamala Harris and earlier Joe Biden did not. His campaign was a blend of comedy, fury, optimism, darkness, and cynicism.
Lots of focus on what Donald Trump is going to deliver, particularly if, as the trend shows, he will have full control of Congress as well.
Yeah, a lot of worries about what this means for the battle against climate change, the effects of which we're actually starting to see in very adverse weather all across the world. Donald Trump, like many but not all of his supporters, is a climate skeptic. His words right after he was elected president was drill, baby, drill. The Washington Post notes he wants to unleash domestic fossil fuel production, dismantle key environmental protections, scale back federal support for renewable energies, but also electric vehicles. He could also withdraw the U.S.'s adherence to the Paris Climate Change Accords, as he did in his first term. And if he does that, well, it would have very lasting consequences on the international community and the global battle to fight climate change.
And speaking of the world, what about the international press, Dipti? How are they reacting to this Donald Trump victory?
Well, let's start with the Australian paper, The Age. On its front page says, here's Donnie. He's a man accused of 34 felonies, twice impeached, accused of racism, misogyny, inciting a riot. But he now has secured a second term in the White House. The South China Morning Post on its front page calls him the comeback king, dedicating a full page to his victory in the elections. Elsewhere in the Middle East, this is from the Jerusalem Post, which headlines on Donald Trump's quote that he's going to stop all wars, notably the war in Ukraine, but also Israel's war in Gaza. And this is from the paper from Burkina Faso called Le Pays, which wonders what impact this presidency will have on relations with the African continent. The paper says African countries have already learned how to handle themselves in an increasingly multipolarized world. An inward-looking America, though, could dictate Africa's behavior, particularly when it comes to bilateral agreements in the future.
You found some reaction from here in Europe too?
Absolutely, a lot of reaction from the European papers. Not a surprise. This is from Der Tagesspiegel, a German paper. You don't really need to understand German to know what that says on its front page. The end, it says pretty ominously. This is from El Periódico, a Spanish paper which calls Donald Trump Hurricane Trump, who's causing a lot of concern now for European leaders who are very unsure about what this all means. This is from a Portuguese daily, Público, which wonders how the world will survive a second Donald Trump presidency. La Repubblica, the Italian paper, says in an almost identical photo on its front page, he's back, it says on its front page, dedicating a lot of space to the US elections as well. Also noting that Donald Trump's close ally, Elon Musk, is now $13 billion richer thanks to this election. Here in France, this is from L'Humanité, which is a communist paper which evokes the American nightmare that has now begun. The Sun, British daily, The Sun says he's been shot, sued, tried, insulted, and written off, but ordinary Americans say you're rehired. And finally, this is from Society of French magazine, which you can see here, sees Lady Liberty being hung or being hanged by Donald Trump's red tie.
And speaking of images, let's end on a few cartoons from the Illustrated Press. They're no doubt preparing for what's going to be a pretty stormy years, no doubt, probably to come.
Yeah, I think I dare say there'll be a lot for the cartoonists to unpack in the years to come. This is from the British cartoonist Peter Brooks, who reminds us that a convicted felon is now in the White House and a U.S. president in this very telling picture there. This is from Mike Lester, a conservative cartoonist, who has this person here saying, you don't understand what you voted for, while this person in the middle says, wearing that presumably Make America Great Again hat, says, maybe, but I do understand what I voted against. Things like illegal immigration, inflation, Bidenomics, open borders. Presumably, voters who voted for Donald Trump were also voting against everything that the Democratic Party stood for. And this is what Dana Summers, another conservative cartoonist, has. He sees Donald Trump as a garbage man, tipping the far left agenda into a dump truck.
One way of looking at it. Good cartoons to finish with, Dipti. Thank you very much, Dipti Laurent, there with the papers here on France 24.